I do respect law and legal authority. However, the allegation that the administration and executives of our society have used weaselry to weasel out of any sort of investigative responsibility comes very naturally to the lips of someone who's been bypassed in an enormity. I'll call your attention to a few things. There were a dozen witnesses when Steve Tangney and Sound Mental Health poisoned me in the mouth on a camping trip, leading to the problem in my gums and loss of teeth. And a huge boil came up on my lip. The people I'm dealing with are experts at creating an environment around the commissions of the crimes that they commit, so that they create a context in which their victim is aware. They're professional gaslighters. Clint Eastwood, right as COVID erupted, sent me out of the clear blue sky a smoking gun autograph. These are expert criminals. I have been juggling a continuation of my complaint in the federal courts, which is clearly going to be shut down. It's been transferred to a new magistrate who doesn't even want to look at the case file. It's not closed yet. And I wrote to them that the state of Washington, operating openly as a military and guerrilla domestic terrorism syndicate, by which I mean they create this environment around the commission of their crimes. They openly flout that the authorities have ignored for decades that I had a neurotrauma, that I was manipulated and used publicly for an alter ego presentation created by the Geffen Corporation and Peter Gabriel to smush and censor my complaints about Nosferatu, whose activity in Pittsburgh, even after John Schulman, the lead player with Leslie Katz, was arrested for a $6 million museum heist. They chose $6 million out of a hat because it has a syncopation to the 6 million Jews who were killed, and they gave him house arrest. This is the way their prosecution took. The form that their prosecution took was to sympathize with someone who was stealing from them, who tortured me. And Peter Gabriel created an alibi for him on his album So. Huge, loud, and clear, leading to the travesty in Gaza. They did nothing to intercede about the letters of Gail Carolyn Burston, which were clearly, acrimoniously, a brag that the Israelis were behind the AIDS attack, a brag that they'd killed Martin Luther King, a brag that John Lennon pulled a Houdini. They did it for Yoko Ono against the house of my old man, who they created a sinister environmental system of symbols when they murdered him, which I reported to the courts and provided evidence for, just like they did when they poisoned me in the mouth. It was the Green Party, which means it wasn't black on white, it wasn't white on white, it wasn't Russian on American, it was all of the above. There was an arc of colors. And long after I spelled that out, I found a book by Walter Colors about religion in the Soviet Union, which was signed out in 1974 by Dalia Dugin and Mark Wagner, which is the name of their army elite. So the pattern is very consistent from Pittsburgh to Tacoma. It's very consistent in the way they operated, the Green Party operated. They brutally environmental the poison in the mouth with ski mask images. It's supposed to be a place that protects the mentally ill, that protects those who are at risk. attacking and poisoning somebody who they refused to allow to go to school. The authorities ignored that I was banned from school. They ignored it, that I was banned from school, saying I would never succeed. And I sat staring into space for 12 years while they dumped dopamine inhibitors on me completely without any justification, smashing me in the face with a basketball. They could have broken my glasses to provoke me. They slasher murdered a girl outside the clubhouse to provoke me. They slasher murdered her. The administration did it. And when I finally escaped and went to school, I was a straight A student for 4 years. I not only graduated, but I made Phi Theta Kappa. Now I have Parkinson's from their abuses. And the administration ignores it like it never happened. And because I'm not an attorney, I don't know how to represent these issues in court, they weasel out of it, which means they're organized criminals who know all about it. Peter Gabriel invited me to be spotted on his record show without consent by the seduction of its playwright. Everybody saw it and everybody knew it. He was throwing postcards at me for 3 years and justifying an insane criminal sex entrapment, a Venus flytrap using bacteriologicals on Mount Desert Island. They blew up the Geffen Labs, $10 million, bye-bye. And he called it an experience park, like as though it was a theme park about AIDS. And he had the right to chase me around, threatening to inject me. This is Peter Gabriel's mind, with Yoko Ono at work. And their art was behind it all along. He says, I can sense the danger. Just listen to the wind before he patchworks in my testimony, my appeal to them, right? On the song, that voice again. Well, The Wind Does Not Hear was on the cover of that Willie Wadmaker album with the guy screaming with his ear being wrenched out of his head. Wadmaker was working with Gail Burstyn. Penis Gabriel knew all this, and he let them go. He helped them get away with it. And the AIDS community in Seattle is going, we'll give you AIDS from Olympia. And the State Department allows this and encourages this as a defense of Nosferatu, Gail Burstyn, and Geffen. Because a wiggler from Senegal comes in and goes, yada, 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 you was getting the pussy. That's their answer to everything. And he pretended to find their own script and broadcast the media doctrine that I was to blame for something I knew nothing about, which never happened. He incited brutal gangster torture and poisoned me. First time I was kidnapped and tortured, as you can see, they poisoned me. There's a featured exhibit from Gail Burstyn's Yoko Ono Diary of Jimmy Crary. Now I just got a flash on my prompt, a notification on my screen that Comedy had answered me at Diabetes Daily. This is a sort of, flip the bird at you that Ringo Starr puts together because, it's a joke. Poisoning somebody and torturing somebody to death is revenge for the Axis defeat in Japan. It's a laugh to people. Aaron Bushnell was not the only person who gladly lit himself on fire. Sean Strub did it. Foucault did it. They did it with AIDS. Their mindset is, since we have martyrs, we should be allowed to select you as a martyr. That was the basis of my lawsuit. It's apparently going to be rejected. They're just waiting for the opportunity to finalize their rejection. The basis of my lawsuit was that the state of Washington is in an organized crime network with Yoko Ono, who lied about me being to blame for the murder of John Lennon so they could assassinate me. It's a snuff film operation by the criminally insane who exist in office in Olympia, working with Yoko Ono. And I made that absolutely clear to both Cartwright and Christel, the federal judges to whom I appealed. And they're just waiting to laugh at me. They're just, finish up, Crary, so we can laugh at you. The neuropsychiatric team of University of Pittsburgh and Attica State Prison were responsible. They were Zionists named Burstyn and Wattmaker. which is part of a key name society index. Card-carrying organized Zionists at University of Pittsburgh who organized a Manson ordeal. I was put through a Manson ordeal. There were knives, there were guns, there were lead pipes. They gassed me, and I was slaved as a child by hitman forces they hired with names like Pitman, which is like Quarrymen, the first name of the Beatles. And they continue to follow me in Tacoma, largely through the NAACP and churches. And they provided the page with Wademaker's Name by Gail Burson, which talks about DERFs being triple evil. And that organized gangster sexploitation made illegal films of me for Yoko Ono, bragging of this nation called Cinema Magazine, which I thought had been misplaced, but I have since found. They also simply they're poetry thieves. They didn't even ask me when they put my poem into the coupon book. Most important of their attack prostitutes, I call her a jobber. She was an attack prostitute. Was what they called a lady panther in their environmentals named Alpina, working with Dixon and Rosa Clemente. She turned out to have a marriage to a nuclear student, which was arranged to get them into the United States. She admitted that to me. She made no secret of it. Obama, Geffen, and Ono had solidified their power with the help of KGB Putin. During Reagan, when the state of Washington crossed into Pittsburgh, set up this school's race headhunt, left their traces of Civil War graffiti in the Pit News when they murdered my father. The rear side of his obituary shows clear Civil War cipher, and they featured an advertisement for their sexual entrapment in the Pit News, which is firmly ensconced by Reagan's team, including Ringo Starr, in the Telltale clip, which is available in the Alias Little Boy channel. It's a scene I extracted from one of their movies. This shows they made a legal challenge justifying the AIDS attack as a form of interstate mockery based on the idea of Louis adultery, a violation of the Ten Commandments against the black master, the good kind of black, which was just a setup. She didn't tell me she was married. She said she had a roommate. Until it was time to spring the trap for them. Ha ha! Obama calls dibs on Midori Goto, was what the script was about. The whole script was about Midori using her virginity as a battering ram to take revenge over Hiroshima, which the Tacoma Dome at the foot of the mountain, Magic Mountain, and flashcard, you know how it disappears, it's like a magic mountain, portend. Because the nuclear bomb, there's a legend that they should have shown Japan how it works by dropping it on the Mount Edo or whatever it is, the sacred mountain of Japan. The presence of mind in this shark attack is clear from the language of their spiteful environmental graffitis. Many times I was atrociously tortured, homeless, and poisoned for securing the compelling evidence that Reagan killed JFK, which is the root of this, and left his calling card in films like The Killers. He says, "Okay, start timing." Did you know there's a book called 6 Seconds in Dallas about what they did to JFK? He says he sees the sign. Did you ever notice the Stemmons Freeway sign in Zapruder film? He waits. And then Reagan concludes, let him get out of sight, give him 5 seconds. Adding up this information indicates a plot from Fayoum, a contested sovereignty zone in Croatia after World War I, when the originators of Hollywood were meeting the great dictators in the counterfeiting den. The Italian futurists Houdini and P.D. Ouspensky, working with Diaghilev, the partnership of Eisenstein Disney, came up with the plan known as Double Fantasy, a doable operation for the Hollywood Pentagon Disney crowd. And then starred in this You Only Live Twice. All of it clocked to the AIDS attack with a war game over Midori Goto called Two Virgins Pussy Ball to make a laugh of genocide. all in the script, which was announced as Elizabethan theater, with attending films like Spike Lee's He Got Game, implying falsely that Reagan found the letters with Ono rather than hiding them on me as a master plan, which is belied by the telltale semiotics of Diva. It's in the kids' mailbag, which also features my birthday in its telltale semiotic. What this shows is that along with my father's publications like America's Stake in Human Rights and book he wrote while at Columbia with Eisenhower, with whom he was working, is that Bush and Eisenhower, because I was from Bush's ship in the Navy, were grooming me for the big picture. In other words, Trumpy Toon has it in his head that he has the right to just martyr the queer bait. And these are the kinds of issues signifiers that they play games with in their movies. If the President of the United States was to come in here and wanted to sit down, would you have a table for him? Well, of course, says the waiter. Well, I guarantee you he won't be here, so. And there's a man photographed behind the Dealey Plaza grassy knoll with a coat over his arm, just like Errol Flynn in this film. And the telltale semiotic from a film of World War II with Reagan and Errol Flynn, which has U.S. over a swastika, man holding his ears, and a bust of Adolf Hitler next to Reagan and Errol Flynn. So it's able to prove that the NAACP are accessories in this tag team of statecraft and enforcers in crime of pussyball clock to the AIDS attack. And of course, they call it black psychology to sacrifice the white. It's black psychology. Because the black man was the victim of AIDS. When I worked in the fall, they had me working in the Fall Medical Library in 1984, so I saw the early things about AIDS, and they were all white, gay cadavers. You know, the stuff about, it's the black man is pure opportunism by the people who went along with it. Yoko Ono's attorney wrote to me, the whole is greater than the sum of its parts. And they put out an album called One Size Fits All. What it means is the black man's going to get the money. The black man's going to get the money. And that's the way they're dealing the bribe network in Olympia and the Tacoma. And here that I provide was able to prove that the NAACP are accessories in this tag team of statecraft and enforcers in crime from the evidence I predicted a Holocaust Jew community member in the Green Party leadership had, like Foucault, who met for Reagan with Comedy, given himself AIDS, and lo and behold, Sean Straub was identified that way outside the Dakota with Chapman and Ono. Straub not only has the same letters as Burston in his name, but flashcards like Strobe, among other hints. Strawberry Fields. It's all encrypted. Greg Carl, a scriptwriter who justified AIDS with a Catholic screed calling for war on sexual morality, wrote how I was used as its alter ego. They invented the walrus. He quote, the persona is subjected to successive degradations of the X motive. One almost hears a lisp of King Thorals in that. The persona is subjected to successive degradation of the X motive. What's that mean, Thorals? It means sex. What's that again, Thorals? I couldn't understand your lisp. Sex. Can you understand sex? It's wrong, queerbait. The attackers insist that the neurobehavioral implant that is now invisible in my facial nerve as necessary to show the true enemy within nature of the queerbait in what they called me be observation. Their baloney word. You can see it. And the stupid Seattle left. All their whiny stuff. were pointing the finger at me about a girl who was rubbing her snout in my mouth for months, night after night after night, who I never tried to conquer because she was coy. And they say I felt like a rejected lover. Yeah, yeah. I didn't do anything at all to her. They started comparing me to murderer after murderer after murderer. And then they poisoned a girl with the same neurochemical switchboard operation as a car bomb so that she crashed a car and somebody got killed. And they said, that's like you, queerbait. This is the mentality of these stupid sophomores who justify organized crime from Yoko Ono, The Axis, and Olympia. They call me a murderer for refusal to date rape. That's literally true. That's what Penis Gabriel and Robert Fripp put together for Ringo Starr's alibi. They said that virginity proves rape. And they're exterminating Gaza because virginity proves rape. And they helped them do this. This is literally what the lawsuit alleges because it's true. They literally created a genocide out of the idea that virginity proves rape with the help of all these stupid sophomores at Carnegie Mellon, University of Pittsburgh, Vince Ireni's, wine and dine garage rock shows. And if you look at the medicines they gave me, they put me in my heart into flutter. They put me into diabetic, into Parkinson's disease, and they were never for the things I had. They were never for neurotrauma. And they kept me out of school saying I would never succeed because why? Because I can testify intelligently about murder, torture, and genocide, so I'll never succeed in school. I was a straight A student for 4 years after they locked me up for 12, refusing to address the fact they tried to say that Penis Gabriel didn't write to me for 3 years. Yes, he did. Proof that a damaging, false, and malicious alter ego about me was widely circulated to incite deadly injury. Evidence of research that was violently suppressed, showing disregard for truth or investigation, constituting absolutely genocidal negligence and malice. Compendiums of corroboration for consultation and recommended subpoena. These compendiums are not frivolous, but go beyond necessary and sufficient material, proof of claim and advisory to discretion. And yet, the state of Washington refuses to investigate a word of it. Testimony, tables of evidence in Crary versus State of Washington, 324 cv-05666-TMC. 2 letters of Gail Burstyn proving an alter ego was widely promoted to incite deadly crime. Smithsonian icon of Gail Burstyn from 1979, the year before John Lennon stepped out, on the cover of one of his friends' records, proving the crime they allege never even took place. A Smithsonian magazine proving State of Washington knowingly promoted felony museum thieves. A list of medications showing the gravity of the price exacted by the State of Washington for whistleblowing. Cinema publication naming plaintiff showing an informal execution warrant known as a snuff film originates from the State of Washington. They are justifying a death penalty for not understanding that they were planning a death penalty. Homeless for 2 years because I testified to the Manson ordeal, Seattle lured me here with ADWES, the Abused Deaf Women's Advocacy Service, and remedied my not being a woman by an unidentified registered nurse prescription of atenolol, which combined with dishonestly mandated dopamine inhibitors set the stage for diabetes, Parkinson's, while effectuating a gender change by chemically castrating me, achieving a temporary stay of HIV injection. That's the whole mentality of Gurdjieff's Club. They say, oh, you're going to get help from Abused Deaf Women's Advocacy Agency, so we're going to take your penis away. That's the way they think. They victimized me horribly. They didn't even allow me to come to Seattle until after they raped my deaf advocate in Pittsburgh. Then they were like, oh, well, maybe that's enough, but not enough. That's what they called their brochure, enough, but not enough. Over the dispute in the script charging me with failure to date rape Leslie Katz, a mysterious charge criminalizing me for deigning to leave her remaining a virgin despite 2 years of heavy dating. That's what happens when the finger wrigglers like George Galloway get control of politics, which, among other things, necessitated by their honor, their attack on and rape of my deaf advocate and Ripper attack outside their facilities. But you know, UW fight clubs, man, we got something under our craw. We got something about Queerball being a rapist under our craw. We gotta settle the score, so we'll rape Def Genie. And then the score will be settled long enough so it's enough, but not enough. This is their mind. And they advertise it openly, and they refuse to hear a word of it. And the police and the administration of schools in the courthouse. And the police and I endured 2 ER heart emergencies when I went into flutter. State of Washington was mobile and intelligent. Attacking me in Pittsburgh by Civil War, this fact is telltale. In the obituary of my father and attending pit news articles by assassins provided to show the synchronization of their snuff film apparatus and the Mockingbird style of their telltale clip. And you know how they back it up? They go, if that evidence is honored, guess what? Anything we imagine, we get to act on as though it's true. That's their insurance plan. Neva Mancini, the sister of Didi, has a nom de guerre signifying Tokyo porno giant Neva, Manson Cinema, who used the C for copyright in the Star of David as their genocide porno show statement. Manson Cinema is also on display. Now, Obama is enforcing a death sentence for whistleblowing. He will kick the door down. He likes to do that. That's his gig. The murderers refuse the truth, are loyal to genocide, and severely injured me with intent to kill, having selected me as a World War II asset because of my father. It satisfies the bloodthirst of Yoko Ono, whose attaché is Gail Burston. Just give us one sacrifice, give us one small child, was what they had in mind. They moved to illuminate the AIDS attack as prescriptive over sexual misconduct. Gregory Carl admitted their brutal mandate. It is genocide pornography. Lie after lie, Seattle furiously potboils their snuff and rape film for profit administratively. I have been advised and am grateful that despite my lack of qualifications, the courts agreed to consider my search for remedy on its merits. That's sort of a ha-ha. They won't give me a lawyer. There's precedent for my presentation, I said. Not everyone reads the Constitution closely. Spellbound by Poe as a child, I gave it only passing consideration. Did notice it had a substantial clause that the government committed wrongs too grave. It was the right of the people to seek its abolition. I waved the idea off as nonsense because adults exist. When an underground group gains hold of the levers of power with intent to abolish the government, no adults can be found anywhere in the room. When in such a state of helplessness, when help never came, I became engrossed in understanding what had gone wrong. Buying the misguided actions taken by Washington was stating, without review of the evidence, which is surpassingly ferocious an illustration of truly unnatural aggression. They announced me wrong, categorically, supplied their idea of narcotic remedy, while banning me from school as inept and unable to succeed. I escaped temporarily back to Pennsylvania, where I had fled from, graduated from two-year college, though deaf, and am now an alumnus after 2 years of Phi Theta Kappa in Tacoma Community College, having completed successfully 4 years of school. I ask you to understand my reasons for wanting this review of public safety from severe unnatural injury, both personal and to protect others, incurred from malicious negligence and hotwiring performed in malice by rivals in statecraft, which they even seem to hold under George Will's dubious notion of soulcraft. I do not promise the settlement money to anybody other than my own pursuit of happiness. Whatever else they were trying to do, they were trying to force me to lie. They also are trying to extort from me anything of value that they can because of their ravenous sadism. They are very frustrated with the idea that they can't force private citizens to cater to their whims. This is a dishonorable state officials. I am a poet who they have already ripped off. I will consult the municipal law library to the best of my power to prepare to present this problem in court against the defendant, which is the state of Washington, in conformity with precedent and rules. I am only passingly aware that the issue of knowledge can be pressed as a mandate. Once you see the materials, I felt confident they would agree there was grounds for actions. Not only am I right about Reagan, but he worked the magic show alibi like a comic book villain, similar to what Trump pulled in Butler. There are two letters that loudly proclaim the deadly lie that I'm to blame for Lennon's murder. The crime that these letters factually establish never even happened. And there was a media ruse called double fantasy. The state of Washington, while actively justifying a war-motivated snuff film con job, refuses proper investigation that is called for and overdue. They don't want discovery and have tortured me, leaving me with a paralytic syndrome while spreading and enforcing cowardly lies about me, inciting evil reprisals, poison crimes, terrorism, etc. Using the name Burston, which Edna Ray Galuli changed her name to in the making of The Exorcist, these maniacs are making a pun on The Enemy Within, the title of Robert Kennedy's book, and used a personality change chemical on me to scientifically compel rule fulfillment, which they failed, and failing launched a rampage. While constantly bombarding me, because what they really can't believe is I didn't push myself on Leslie and do the deed. They have these dances they do, like go like with their knees like a chicken playing chicken. They're obscene, indecent hate criminals, and I didn't want to be one of them. I said no, that's okay, and they said we demand the right to commit genocide because Crary refused to commit rape. They are ripper hatters, constantly bombarding me with innuendo from Beatles media when they are the perpetrators. They've used their cunning about Lennon to shield themselves while attacking us with AIDS, COVID, and now polio in Gaza. Ripper hatters. It's a gaslight Stonewall. It's totally ignoring Yoko Ono's real motive, which is revenge for World War II, directed at my house symbolically because of my father. In fact, Putin facilitated her by having Valieva fall for fourth in Beijing 2022, clearing the way for a Japanese skater to claim victory in three. It's not my fault that you cannot read and do not understand Hitlerian semiotics. I found the themic, semiotic, and background layers of international cinema that allows me to read their ballet, matching the script that took years to secure microfilm aspects of. You knew from the entrapment ring on Mount Desert Island where they framed me vis-a-vis AIDS, it was organized crime. They were from the Gurdjieff cult of the fourth dimensional psychologist Ouspensky, who worked in the era of Houdini on the Russian-American great dictator plan of Hollywood, Axis Hollywood. The semiotic contains four themes consistently found: Japanese, German, American, French, British films in the background. Hitler's escape is number one. Murder of JFK to punish Hiroshima is number two. Two Virgins Pussyball Clock to AIDS is number three. And the fourth is Lennon's Houdini. The corroboration I have secured is copious. The plaintiff has no further printer potential upon I rest the tables. The court finds it improbable that the plaintiff can remedy defects in presentation. The wounded petitioner suffers Parkinson's and has no surfeit of strength to devote to corrective language. Out of respect for the profession, I have not been vexatious, despite the indignation I feel that moral impostors should get away with what they are doing. But I was misread. Although I see the grounds for improbability, My conclusion mandates clarification. I do not withdraw the complaint. I will clarify. Failure of the state of Washington meaningfully intercede against the Geffen clan, meaning the Beatles, can only indicate organized crime in Washington of an absolutely horrible dimension. Declining review of the extreme cause I submitted as tables is shocking. Are you trying to protect me from harm that would befall me if you grasp the absolutely horrible nature of the serial injuries inflicted by organized crime? I certainly will not force you to punish me for reporting unspeakable crimes committed against my person. Those of us who stand aside in matters of law are not witless concerning the beauty and august dimension of those who study, with ethics and sincerity as their guide. As witness the tears of love shed by even the most cynical among us regarding South Africa's breathtaking performance at the ICJ. It is, however, a struggle to accept that the state of Washington would create a SCOTUS dimension war crime and refuse to regard the evidence. I will hold my tongue.